Okay. I'm sure some more people will drop in a little bit later. Usually some show up 5-10 minutes after. But I do want to start in time, not to keep you guys waiting. And we'll be showing our new editor today. And before I start with anything, I had a really quick question to the two people that are currently in here. Just really curious, have you used the current live editor before? And you can type in the chat on the top right. You can also unmute yourself. I believe that's possible. Let me check. Oh yeah, I need to give you permissions here. There we go. Yeah, you should be able to see a microphone icon on the top. You can always jump in and ask questions at any time. So really curious just to learn whether you've used our editor before. Hi.
Hi, Sergius here. How are you, Nick?
Yeah,
Very good, thanks.
Hello.
I just woke up.
Okay.
Quite late here. It's 1 a.m. So
Oh my God.
Yeah. So yes, I mean I've used it a little bit. I've
Mhm.
got we've actually got a couple of web developers working on the software itself, just
Yep.
purely because they should be able to handle it a little bit easier than I can.
Okay.
So that's where I'm standing on that. But I think that they may be logged in actually themselves now. I'm hoping. I'm hoping
Yeah.
they are. I haven't seen their name yet.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, then it's really interesting. One of the big missions for our new editor was a lot of it was improving the experience of creating content. We did learn from our customers there were a lot of things that could be improved. Some things were really cumbersome and difficult to get done. So a lot of what you see here is hopefully just meaningful improvements, along with some exciting new features as well. So that's what's going to be coming up here. Lutfia, am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Have you used our old editor before?
What?
Have you before used our current editor for creating content, or are you new to what we're doing here?
I'm new.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll start with the basics here, and there's not going to be anything too difficult. If there's any questions, and again, we're not a lot of people yet, at any time, please interrupt me. And also, if the quality goes down, if you don't hear me or the screen is not updating, feel free to jump in. I also have one of our tech employees, Chris, is on board as well. He will monitor that everything's working smoothly. And you can at any time write something in the chat here on the right. Chris will be moderating that, so because I won't look at it, and then he can bring up questions as well. Okay, cool. Now a quick intro to MagLoft and where I am right now on my screen here. This is the MagLoft portal, which might be familiar. I'm not going to explain a lot of what's in there. We're happy to, of course, go into that when there are particular questions, but I want to jump straight into the editor. And to do that, I've already created live session number 5, which is the 5th one we have today. What you do is you go to issues, then you click on create. And right now, if you do that today, you'll only see the old editor presented like this. But after this call, we'll invite every one of you into the beta. So you can, here you'll have MagLoft 2.0, that's the one you want to choose, and you give it a name, and then you can get started. So I did that already, so I'm just going to jump straight into live session number 5. And when you open it the very first time, the editor asks you to choose a page you want to get started with. The blank one is at the bottom right if you want to just start hacking on your own. But I'm going to jump into a cover page here, create page, and we're ready to go. So before I start changing stuff and jumping around here, I just want to give you a really brief introduction of the user interface, also what has changed compared to the old editor. And we'll start out with the overall layout. On the top left, we have these controls that are very similar to Microsoft Word and Google Docs for editing content. You see that it's grayed out until you click on one of the texts, you select anything on the page, then this will become visible. And I'm not going to go through all of them because a lot of them I believe are quite common sense. You can hover to get some information of what they do. They are for text editing, changing colors, font family, font sizes. And at the very right, the one that's worth mentioning is the hyperlink. That's important to know where that one is. Everything else is kind of the standard tools that are also in most of the text editors. One important change to the old editor is in the old editor, you used to always select the text and then you're able to apply the styling. Now you just need to select whatever widget you want to change. And when you change the color here, it will automatically apply to everything. And we do have a new color picker. It works a little bit easier. You can paste in a code if you have it. Sometimes if your corporate design has the color codes already. And then you can also choose a palette of colors here. Good. So what I already did in the center of the page is by clicking on anything, you'll see that it will select what we call widgets. So everything on the pages, they are widgets. And this is depending on where you're coming from and what tools you used to use. If you're coming from tools like InDesign or Photoshop, then there's one important difference in the way that working with content for responsive content works. And I'll explain that in a little bit. But for now, we can just click through whatever is there on the page, and those are the widgets we can edit. What I want to explain next is that this editor is meant to be a responsive editor. What that means is we want our users to only create the content one time, let's say a cover page like this. And by creating it once, it will work for all the different devices and orientations. So that's also where it's going to be a little bit different to use it. And I'll explain that in more detail. But the overall idea is on the very top, you can see you can switch between different devices and orientations. When I go to a phone screen, this in the middle here should be a relatively a standard phone size. You can see that the text is still readable. It doesn't get very small, as you'd often see it with a PDF on a phone. It stays readable, and the content will always flow downwards, but it will remain readable and visible. So we can see there's some differences if I compare the tablet version here, where we have 3 columns, to the phone where those break underneath. That's because if they were next to each other, there would just not be enough space. So typically one of the big changes is you use columns for tablets, desktop, and landscape orientations, but automatically in our editor, by default, all these columns will go into a single column here. Benefit is no need to zoom for a reader on a phone. They can just really navigate and swipe downwards to consume the whole page. So this you can always switch around here, and we do recommend when you've created a page, go through them and make sure that the design is working fine on all of them. Classic pitfall is if you're on a tablet and I increase the text size, make it really big like this. If I now go to the phone, we can see that this text actually just breaks not conveniently. So then on the phone, I go here to the font size, I reduce it until it fits, and done. Now I can switch back to tablet, and I see that it still works. So this is kind of one of the main principles of the editor. I hope, and usually this saves a lot of time. There are some, and this is again, if you're coming from design tools like InDesign, there's also a compromise that we have in our editor. It's not as absolute and flexible as you would be with InDesign. For example, it wouldn't be easy to place a text exactly 8 pixels to the top right. There's usually a workaround, but it's not as simple as dragging it there and making sure it sticks exactly here. Instead, we need to make sure that we kind of have this hierarchy, this flow, this river flow from top to bottom of our content. And I'll show that now in a quick example. On the top right, I can save the page. I do that now just to make sure we're not losing anything. And I'm gonna create a new blank page. So just to go a little bit slow here, on the top left, we have the Pages panel. We can see that's already my first page, cover art. That's the one I created when I opened the editor. I'm gonna click on Create New Page, and this time I'm gonna choose blank. So what we get now is pretty much nothing. There's an empty page, so we have to learn how to populate this with content. And the way that the content works is there are basically two ways how you can add content to a page. The more granular approach, the more probably complex way is you go to the widgets, where you have all the different elements. Those range from classic headings, text, lines, buttons, over to social media widgets, sliders, SoundCloud, Vimeo, YouTube. We'll try out some of them a little bit later. And you can drag them into the page. But there's also an easier way, which is what we call blocks. If you switch to the blocks, you can find already created elements that you can drag on the page. So for now, I just want to start with the first one here. It's called heading cover, and this library here is growing. We'll have more of them soon. So let me do that slowly. So on the left, where it says heading cover, I have two options. Either I drag it, and I hold my mouse cursor down, and I drag it to the right. And while I drag it, you can see there's a blue line at the very top of the page. This blue line is gonna be a very good friend of yours soon, because this will always tell you where your content goes. So this is also, again, to explain the difference to tools like InDesign. In InDesign, I could go to the very bottom of the page and fit it there, right? In a responsive, reflowing way, where we want to make sure it works on all screen sizes, content always attaches to the top. So I'm going to release it here, and now we have our block placed in here. And next, just again to mock up a page real quick, I want to use, let's go with this paragraph with mosaic. And I show the second way. It's just, it's very similar, but I can also, instead of dragging it, I can click it once. When I do that, you can see I now have this icon just like before. And now I don't need to hold down the mouse cursor, and I can go to the right of the page. However, now here's something interesting about the blue line. You can see that I now have quite a lot of options where I can place it. And mostly it's relatively simple, like here. Should it be here? It would be between the black and the brown reddish headline. So this is kind of easy to understand. However, there are also two lines here that are quite similar, but we can see that the bottom line goes all the way to the left and right, and the one before is kind of inside of that. And this is something I'll explain in a little bit, how some of the content is nested. But for now, I'm just going to drag it to the very bottom because it's an easy example. And yeah, with two drags, I've basically mocked up a brief design, and this library of blocks is growing. We currently have people working on creating more and more content, also in very different themes and styles. This is what we hope, like the most easy and straightforward way to quickly come up with results. Obviously, if you want to play around and create more individual designs, then you can do that, of course, as well. Good. So this was about dragging in blocks. Up until now, are there any questions? Feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. I do. So now we've dragged in blocks. I'd say I'd go with a widget now, which is the smaller component. And this is sometimes a really good idea if you have, let's say, this block we just dragged in, mosaic on the right, text on the left. let's say we want to add something to this one. A button might be an idea here. So I'm gonna drag the button, and now we can see there are many more blue lines. So it might take a little bit of time to get used to all of them. They can be quite overwhelming in the beginning. But what I wanna do is have a button at the bottom of the paragraph. And I'm carefully moving my mouse until I'm sure I'm at the right position. We can see the blue line tells me it's going to end up below. Gotta be careful, if I go too far to the right, it will be placed on the right-hand side or left-hand side. So I'm going to release it here. And here's our button. I'm going to call this one Learn More. And with the button widget, it might be the first time that it makes sense to look into the options we have. So all these blocks and widgets on this page, they come in our blocks, they come in a given design, but you can change everything of that freely. To explain how that works is, all you need to do is you click on a widget and you'll see that on the left-hand side, this attributes panel comes up and gives you a couple of options. Depending on what kind of widget, the paragraph, the text widget, doesn't have that many. The button widget has many more. So for this one, what hurts my eye right now is that this is kind of center aligned, where this paragraph here is floating to the left. So I want to align this one to the left. I can then also choose to maybe make it full width. In that case, I would again align it center. So that would be another option of placing the button here. And then there are various other options. I want to give this one let's stick with our reddish color palette. Now with this button being red, I'm going to select the text, go to the edit controls up here and make this white and bold. Okay. Yeah, so that's an easy way for the button to brand it. There are some more options you can control, if there should be a shadow, if there should be a shade, which is just a slight gradient highlight on it. We can also set up a border radius. This one here, border radius, I just use the controls here on the right to increase it, to make this one 16. So now we've got a rounded border on this button. And that's, yeah, so there are many more of these, and I'll explain some of them, but that I think also when you start using the editor, just always keep attention to what's going on here on the right. You'll find the different attributes that you can change. Next example, I briefly want to show you one of the new changes that came that was really, really difficult to do in the old editor, which was controlling the spacing. In our old editor, there were some attributes that were called margin left, padding left, and you type in a number and then you try to figure out how that changes the spacing. I want to show how this is done today. We can see this text widget I've selected here has a slightly blue highlight to all sides, and if I hover over them, it will actually show me the number 16 here. This is 16 units pixel in the web. It's a different unit on mobile, but this space is now placed on the left, and you don't find this padding attribute on the left. So if you want to make changes to the spacing of these widgets, all you need to do is you hover over the blue area, and then you can drag and hold, move your mouse to change that inset. So I'm doing this now on the left-hand side. Let's say for this one, I want to give it 32. I'm going to do that on the right-hand side as well. And I can do that for all the different sides. There is a little advanced shortcut here. While I'm dragging, I can hold the Shift key. That will basically change the opposite side as well. I can also hold down the Command key. Then it will change all 4 sides of it. And one important addition now, that every widget on this page, and just to recap, we've got a heading, we've got a text, 3 texts to the left, images to the right. So I can select any of these widgets, and all of them now, since the new editor, have an option to have a background color. And this was one of the biggest learnings from our old editor. Before, you had to drag in a widget that we call the layer widget just to have a background. Now every widget is capable of doing that. So I could go ahead and give this one a red background. Now, by having the padding, you can make sure, and this is usually a good idea, if the text has no padding and I give it a background color, then we'll usually enter one of these classic mistakes of design. Your text should always have a little bit of spacing to the sides if there is a different background. So here it's a good idea to make sure there is some border. Now the black text on the red color doesn't work, so I'm going to change this one to white. And now we have one widget, which is the text widget, that now also has a background color and a text color. Yeah, so that is, I know for many of our existing TypeLoft users, that was one of the features they were waiting on quite a fair bit of time, and we finally got to get this one done. And again, I'll keep going, but please, whenever you have any questions or want to learn something about some other widgets, just jump in and interrupt me freely. With that, the next thing I wanted to show you is another big improvement we had to our old editor. So for this one, I'm going to delete the right-hand side here, so we get some more space. And previously in our old editor, if I want to have a 2 or 3 column layout, what I had to do is I go to widgets. We had this columns widget. It was really difficult to use. I had to drag it in. It was hard to find later on. So this has changed now as well. And to show how it works today, you won't find a columns widget in here anymore. Instead, any of the existing widgets on the page or new widgets you drag in, and I'll do it now for an existing widget because we didn't do that yet. I can hover over the blue label on the top left. And now if I drag this one, I get my lines again. And I can not only place them above and below, I can now also go to the right-hand side. And we see that the blue line is now on the right. If I release it here, we have our 2 columns. So it's simply by drag and drop, we can make sure they're in the right spot. So little design fixes. I can see I probably want to have the same padding on this side. So this is the same line here. Also, the button is a little bit quelched to the top. Add more spacing here. And there we go. Now we have a 2-column layout here. And I mentioned before, by default, this columns widget will collapse on the phone. To show you that, if I go to the phone, we can now see that the red background and the regular paragraph are now underneath each other. The reason why we choose to do that by default, again, is just because if I remove this, and you can do that, collapse phone, if you turn this one off, we'll have them next to each other. In this case, it might still work, but do consider, even though the phone size here is a certain size, there might even be smaller ones. So it's never a good idea to have like paragraphs with a lot of text in expanded or not collapsed on a phone. So usually the default is fine, unless you have you want to build a social media bar or a header, then you can obviously disable collapse phone. Okay, good. So that was a brief introduction, and I'm I think I don't want to spend too much time in the details. All these widgets that we see here, we can explore by just dragging them in, and we encourage our users to just try them out. We have a help button at the bottom right in our editor, where you can always ask questions as well. And I guess some of the more the more exciting features and new things that came into the editor is kind of what this second part of this session is going to be about. But maybe before I jump to that, just again another quick opportunity for anyone to ask any questions or ideas.
The values for the columns, can you, instead of doing it just visually and you want to be more precise, can you input numeric values?
For the spacings?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. So currently you can't. This could be a good idea to add. Just note that down. Specific value for paddings.
Sometimes visually can be quite difficult to see.
Yep. There is one thing that we do, and it might not be clear because of a little bit of a delay. When I drag these edges, and I do it very slowly, you can see that they actually always change 8 units. And this is something that's the default setting. That's because it makes it easier to make sure they are, 2 different paragraphs have the same spacing.
Right. Okay.
We do
Always
have,
8
yeah.
pixels. Is it?
Sorry?
8 pixels? Did you say?
Yeah, 8 units or pixels it is. Yeah.
Okay.
And we are, interestingly, 2 sessions ago, someone brought it up as well that, sometimes what if you want 4 or what if you want 6? So what we're doing is we're adding a new setting where you can change this one. You could make it 4, 2, or even 1. If it's 1, then obviously you've got to be very precise. But I did note down it could be a super interesting thing, maybe being able to click here to type in a number to have an exact value. Yeah. Cool. And also, I didn't mention that yet, but one of the main reasons why we have these calls is also to get feedback and ideas of how we can build it. We're not really building it for ourselves. We're building it for our customers and users. So thanks a lot for these kinds of ideas. We're plotting them down, and we'll add all of them to our feature list. And I think a lot of them, especially now that early on, we'll get a lot of that in the next versions.
When do you expect to go live with this? When will this go into production as the as an approved version, if you like?
Excellent. Yeah. So we will be launching this one as a public beta, meaning that everyone who signs up, every user on MagLoft is using this one by default. This will go live on Monday. Okay. So being able to edit and work with it will be from Monday. However, there is one important thing. It will still be a beta for about a month, for about 30 days. And that means that if you want to publish a production grade magazine, and it's always difficult to explain this. Some of our customers are fine. They have an audience where there's slight little glitches, it's fine. But if it's a professional magazine and you have stakeholders or shareholders that are giving you a lot of trouble if there's anything going on, then we recommend waiting for another month, about until mid-September. That's when we have done all our due diligence, when we're testing with a fleet of devices to make sure that also on your readers' devices and on websites, the content will work in all the different browsers and versions. So that's going to be from mid-September.
Okay.
And we do have a backlog item as well. We will be sending out a roadmap, not only for the launch dates, but also for new features, new additions that are coming in. Cool. Any other questions? Okay, then I want to show you now pretty much the new features that weren't there at all in the old editor. And to start out, I'm going to jump to the media library, which has changed a little bit. It's now much more prominent. You have more space here. There are a couple of tools. So this in itself is something you can play around with quite a bit to explore everything that's possible. What I'm doing now is I'm switching to the mosaic mode, where I do see the real sizes of the images. And this works the same way or very similar to our old editor. You can just drag in content, or you click this blue button to upload images. But what's new here is that we now also support different image sources. For now, we have Unsplash. That's what we're launching today. But we are planning to bring in Dropbox, Google Drive, various different sources. So we are getting the images from where they already are. And you can share these folders with others. So it will make collaboration much more easy. But just to show you the convenience of, for now, we use an amazing free stock photography service called Unsplash. If you haven't heard of it, it's this camera icon. So if I go here, I get a catalog of usually what I would call super amazing images. They are ordered by like when they were published. So ideally, if you have any kind of motive, and we tried that for all sorts of things. I think last week it was about penguins. This week, does anyone have a favorite animal here? Spirit animal?
Panda.
Panther?
Panda. Yeah.
Panda. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So this works for animals or any kind of content. Usually they have quite a fantastic amount of images. Sometimes, I mean, if you're working with professional designers that bring you the assets, then this might not be for you. But it's also a good idea if you want to mock up a design and fill it out with placeholders, then you can use that. So whenever you're here on Unsplash, what you need to do next is you choose the images that you want to import. And the reason is we do import it, and we change the wording here slightly. We do import it because we want to quelch them down to optimal file sizes and make sure they are optimized for mobile as well. So I'm going to choose a handful of those. Now I got 4 of them selected. Import to MMS. And this is now, should only take a couple seconds. There we go. And now we've got our images in our library. Which means whenever you import them this way, they'll always be available for you sorted by latest date here. You can also search and filter in here as well. So for now, I'm just going to grab one of these pandas, and I'm going to drag them onto the page. And maybe we want it before these paragraphs here. Yep, there we go. So that media library importing from external sources is one of the features we've waited for a long time until we finally got to get this done. So please go ahead and try this one out specifically and give us some feedback, because this is a very new user interface. And we want to learn if this is convenient and works. Next thing that's new and shiny, one thing that was highly relevant to many of our clients, and it really took us a long time to get this done right, is effects, page effects. And I'm going to just demo this real quick here. Let's say we have a heading, and I want to just spice up the page a little bit. Anyone who reads the article, and we know we're dealing with Generation Y and Generation C, it's good to put something in front of them that makes them realize that this is not a print magazine, that it's more engaging and fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose the heading, and I'm going to, on the left-hand side, I click on Attributes, and here I'm going to set Add Effect. As soon as I click, we can see immediately, and I will need to make, yep.
I think this screen is not updating correctly.
Oh, okay. Thanks for jumping in. Let's see here. So a quick check. I type the letters A, S, D, F.
It doesn't show up.
Not at all. Then I will try sharing again. Every good live session needs at least one technical glitch. Okay, is he coming back?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And the delay? FOODAR?
Nope, there's no delay at all.
Nice. Okay, happy to hear that. So sorry for that. This is our title. I just added an effect here by clicking on Add Effect, and there's a little play icon. I can always press that if I want to preview it. So by default, we just add a slight fade up from bottom up. What this now means is that whenever someone is opening the page, he will see this effect play. Additionally, if someone is swiping all the way to the bottom and then up again, this effect will play again. The trigger that we have for this effect is widget becomes visible. Right? So you can set them up so they will always keep playing when you go away and go back in again. And if you open this one, and what I want to do as a very first thing, I'm going to set the duration to 1,000 milliseconds, just because it might be updating a little bit slower on everyone's screen. I can use a delay, which I can give you an example where this might be useful in a little bit. And then these different boxes here, we got the different effects we can apply: fade, move. Those are the two that we've just staggered on top. They're happening at the same time. I'm going to get rid of them. So right now, if I click on play, nothing is happening. So we can choose any of these 4 and multiple of these 4. What I want to do now is I want to try out the flip effect. And when you open one of these, you have a couple of options. For this one, you have direction. I want to choose vertical. And let's make this one 360 degrees. If I click on play now, you can see that this heading does a backflip. It usually, quite often, it works quite well if you enable fade as well. Then it will kind of fade jump in. And yeah, there we go. Let me bring that to the next example where it might make sense to use the delay as an effect as well. So for this heading here, if I click on play, we can see this immediately does a backflip for us. Next, I'm going to choose the text widget underneath, and I'm going to add an additional effect. This time, this effect, I want to make it, so I open it here, fade, I'm going to keep, move, I'm going to keep, I'm going to change this one from top to bottom. Distance 20, so you can also change this one, give it a higher number, then it will pretty much jump in from further. So I'm going to choose 30. There we go. So now if I go down and up again, we can see both of them just play at the same time. This is where I found it might be an interesting effect if I give this one a delay of, let's say, 600 milliseconds. So now if I go down and up again, we can see that effect number one is playing right away. And then kind of once that is done, the next one jumps in. So that's how we did play around with them quite a bit. We found some very, very interesting things you could do with the delay as well. This effects panel, you can apply that to whatever is on the page. That can be an image here. That could be a collection, like one of these layer widgets or the blocks you dragged in. You can make the whole one fade in. So there's barely any limitations to where you can and cannot apply the effects panel.
And can you apply it so that maybe it applies on a tablet but not on a phone?
Yeah, okay. We haven't had that yet, but that's again interesting feedback. Yep. Thanks for that one.
Okay. Or even even a setting in the magazine that you could disable animation. So if a reader doesn't like the effects in a publication, they can turn them off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I just think some of the older readers might not like the.
Yeah, no, very true. If you deal with, age spanning audiences, that might really be an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So everything that I'm plotting down here, we group them all up, and I mentioned before we'll have a roadmap and a feature catalog. So we'll follow up on all of them. Okay. Good. Next little thing I wanted to show you is something that now most widgets have as well, which is the border radius. And it does make sense to use it in other widgets as well. Give you a quick example. Here's a text without any background. The border radius doesn't do me anything. If I turn this one up, nothing will happen. So it's really only relevant if you create elements like this. We've got our text with a red background. Now here I can add a border radius to give it a shape. So that now works for all the widgets. You can apply that to images. Try that in real quick. $32. So that's how you can quite easily add these. In the past, in the old editor, our customers usually they changed and edited the original image, which was a nightmare. So now most of the widgets support that as well. Okay. Up next, I want to show you just a handful more widgets, and we're pretty much after that. We're pretty much done with these sessions and open for questions. What I want to show you next is a widget that we have improved quite significantly, which is our slider widget. So I'm going to drag the slider. .
Hello.
Toby's internet is going down. I'll get you back
Yeah.
in a second. Wait.
Okay, hello everyone. I think I dropped out there. Yeah. So there's our second hiccup. It's a new tool we're using. We hope that it delivers all the time. How long was I gone?
About a minute.
Okay, so the last thing was then probably showing. Did I already show the slider widget? Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. So do let me know if I was in the middle of a sentence and was answering something important. Then feel free to ping me. Otherwise, I'm gonna jump into the slider widget, which is a new thing we've revamped quite a bit. So I'm gonna go to widgets. I'm gonna choose slider here, and I'm gonna drag it above the button widget. So when you drag in a slider, and this is the same for videos, YouTube, and some others, it might just say click to add slides. So you click on it, then on the top left it says slides. And what's much more convenient here is I can now just click on it and choose a handful of images. And once I'm happy with the selection, I click on confirm. And I got all my images here. The slider works now a little bit more responsive than before as well. You can see there are different sizes of images. They now more seamlessly take up the space they need for display. Another thing that's new with the slider is when you click on the slider, on the left, there's a couple of options. I can set it to autoplay. I can choose the arrows left and right to show or not, the dots at the bottom, and I can choose whether it's draggable on a slide. Now, there is a use case where you want to disable all of them and set it to autoplay. That's if you, for example, want to have a rotating advertisement display. Then this is also the slider widget. In that case, there's nothing really the user can do with it, but you'd still be able to use the different images and sliders on the page. And another change here is the transition. So I can change this now to fade as well, which is a very simple effect of just fading over the image, a little bit less motion involved. And then the other extreme of it is the flip effect, where I can drag it to basically have a flipping carousel. The duration allows me to say how long should it take if I click on one of these buttons to finish. And also here, interesting thing as before, the border radius kind of works pretty well with our slider as well. So let's give this one a big one, 64. You can see that now the whole slider has a radius applied to it, which also gives for a pretty cool effect. Yeah, I guess, again, you can stagger this one with effects, but also as pointed out before, as cool as you can make a page using effects, there's always a too much as well. So maybe for this one, we don't need anything. One more, the last important addition to the slider widget here is we're now able to not only add images in there, we can also add other widgets inside. And I'll show real quick how that works. I'm going to go to the blocks section. And this is where I might be a little bit nervous now because this is brand new. We didn't have this since the last week's session. But I'm going to go ahead and try dragging in this paragraph of image, and I just add it on top of this panda here. And what we have now, if it all works, let me see, seems to work. We got our slider, and we're on the first page, second page. Yeah, so we're now able to use the slider to add complex HTML structures in it. So you could create a page inside a page by using this.
Can you do that again, just to see it again, how it worked?
Yep,
Please.
absolutely. So first, I'm gonna just delete the layer. So we're back to our slider that we had in the beginning with the images. What I need to do for this to work is I need to select the slider widget.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna go to widgets, or in this case, blocks. It works with both. I'm gonna drag here a paragraph with image, and I'm gonna drag this one onto the page. And what you need to do for this to work, and this is something we'll probably improve in the near future, but you need to make sure that you find the previous image and you snap it to the top or to the bottom of it. Either of that is fine.
Okay.
So if I snap it and release it here, now it went to the next page. So now we have our content inside the page.
Oh, okay. Great. That's nice.
And a little bit of a teaser right now, the slider is the only widget. Yeah, right now it's only meant to be something that goes through either automatically or on click. But something that's coming very soon is we'll have more options in the effects panel. One of them being that I can link up the button here to change this slider to a different page. And what this might be useful for is if I disable all of this, I'll also remove the radius here. Then I could build things like a quiz. I could have 3 choices. And if I click on the right one, then I tell the slider to go to the second slide. If I click on the wrong one, I tell it to go to the third slide. So this would allow us, what is it called in InDesign? If anyone is familiar, this what was called the object states groups. It had a fancier name, I think. But you're able to build more advanced pages as well. This will be coming in one of the next weeks before our production launch in mid-September. Okay, another last little thing I wanted to show you is a very simple tool here. It's called Parallax, and it's a subtle effect. Again, make sure that your audience is fine with it, but this is probably one of the more subtle ones that is quite still. This works for all images and layer widgets. So if I turn this one on, now if I navigate the page, we can see that the background image is slightly moving along with the scroll effect. This usually just makes for a nice, it goes quite easy on the eye. It's something that's, it's very clear that something's going on, but if it's a subtle parallax effect and people don't really actively see stuff is changing, but just get a feeling that content comes to life a little bit. Okay, this is our demo page here. And we have about 10 minutes left, so there would be many more things I could show you, but I kind of want to make sure that you guys have if you have any questions, you get room to answer them. Or if you want to see certain things of the editor and ask if certain things are possible, then this is the perfect time for that now.
Yeah, in the chat.
Yeah.
She said that we have tried Tableau 2.0 2 weeks ago, but the image cannot be transparent. She uses a PNG.
Ah, okay. So if I understand, if we go to media and you upload a transparent PNG, then it wouldn't. I think I have one here, and in the media library, it shows the black background. Let me just try real quick if I put this in. So it might be that it just needs to be. It could be just an illusion in our media library where it shows the black background. And this among, if you have any other bugs, you can always reach out afterwards as well, and we can have a closer look at the case. So it seems, let me just make sure that's true what I'm saying. If I change the background color here, yeah. So the image I have here did work transparently.
Wait, Toby, your screen is not updating correctly.
Yeah. Okay, is it better now? Okay, great. So I just tried, it seems like in the media library, it shows a black background. However, when I dragged it in, it did work. So maybe for this one, it could be a problem with the, maybe the browser or some other things, then we can always look into that. If you send us an email, then we'll have a go at it. It should, of course, work. If you have transparent graphics and you upload them, then they are also transparent inside the page.
Just talking about browsers, and what's the preferred browser that should be used?
You come up with all the great questions because this one is really important. No, I'm serious, because right now it's really Chrome that works flawlessly. Okay. Until mid-September, we'll have it optimized for the other browsers. But yeah, it's really important actually to bring it up. Please use Google Chrome for until September, mid-September. All right, thanks for that one. Okay. There was one thing I forgot to show you. So let me go back here. If we come up with a composition of widgets, which we kind of did here, we were using the cover block, then we've changed it, we added effects to it. Let's add another image underneath. Yeah. Let's say I like this composition here, and you can see the layer here spans around until the bottom here. If I want to use this one later on other pages, what I can do is the third icon in here, the second icon that looks like a box. If I click on this one, I can save this work for later use. So I call this one my custom banner heading, save selection. So what I just now did, I created a block, and I already showed you in the very beginning, we created some of these blocks just to make it easier to get started creating content. But for anyone who spends a little bit more time coming up with their own compositions, if you save them as a block and you later on create a new widget, you can just drag this in onto different pages or articles, and it will remember everything from effects to exact styling options. And the same button, it's called Save as Block. There's one additional thing. If you go all the way down to the page widget, you can reach it by either clicking at the bottom left or by clicking anywhere here on the page. When it says page, then you can also save it. But this time, it's not going to be saved in the blocks section. Instead, this will be a new page template. So I'm going to call this one demo page. And I'm going to save this. I'm going to go out of there. So the use case here is if I create a new issue, we will immediately have our demo page available to choose from. And in a little bit, it will also have the thumbnail as the others. It just takes a little bit of time. So I can now create a new issue, and I can prepare the different page templates that I would want them to use. This is good if you yourself work on different issues over time. What this is also really useful for, if you have a designer that you have to create content, you can ask them to create all these pages in an issue and then save them as templates. So later, if your editorial team, your writers go into the editor, all they need to do is create a new page and choose from any of the designs that your designer has created for them. Okay. Is there anything else I forgot? This is a question to Chris. We show so much stuff in here. Okay. So again, there's more room for any questions. And what I will do after this meeting, we'll send out an invite for you to with instructions how you can also try the editor. We'll enable it in your accounts. If you do not, I think you have a MagLoft account. If you don't have one, then do let us know, or we'll send you an email. Then we'll follow up on how we can set it up for you. So I guess really that's kind of the end of it. 1 hour in. Really appreciate you guys joining. I'm gonna be here for at least 15, 20 more minutes, just in case you go out of the meetings and you forgot an important question, then you can always come back and you'll find me here. So with that, I guess if there's no particular questions for now, then I'm gonna say thanks and goodbye to everyone. And again, feel free to stay and ask more questions. I'll be around in here.
Nick?
Sorry?
Hi, Serge here again.
Yeah.
Hi. Just a quick one. Has anything changed on the managing of PDFs? So if I want to start with a PDF and work my way back to a responsive magazine, is there anything that makes my life easier?
There are two things. One of them we have today, which is we can convert your PDF content into templates for the editor. So we do that for some. Yeah, we basically have two services that we offer. One is creating templates based on the PDF. So that means we look at your, let's say it's an 80-page sample issue, and we would try to find similar concepts, and we'd come up with a pool of around 10 to 15 page templates that are resembling the color scheme. So that would then allow you to more easily, basically copy paste the content from the PDF into the editor.
Okay.
The second thing we do is, along with that, we also offer the service of basically taking your PDF and converting it into responsive content. That is also, again, a paid service. Those are the two things that we need to spend manual hours on. There is something we're looking into now, which is converting PDFs into our editor structure, where we are dealing with a very, very difficult format. PDF is a bit of a black box in terms of what the content is, how it reflows, but we are currently actively working on something to make that life easier. It might not be a one-to-one instant perfect conversion, but the idea for us is to I guess the goal here is you upload a 40-page PDF and you'll have all of them in the editor, and all you need to do then is basically fix and curate them, make sure they are looking okay, fixing some of the text and spacings. That's our vision for that.
Okay, so that's in the pipeline, is it?
Yeah, that will be next quarter that we work on that one. So that will be from towards the end of the year that we have the first results.
Because that would make my life an awful lot easier.
Yeah, we do. I forgot the rate. We do have a per page cost when we convert them to the issue. This is something, again, it always depends how lean our publishers are starting out, how much they have resources in-house, but feel free to reach out to us. We have, for the page conversion, we have quite affordable pricing.
Okay, I have 100 pages in each magazine. That's my problem.
Yeah, no, for sure. How are super great question again? So how is this content created? In which tool?
InDesign.
Okay, got it. There is a plugin. Have you ever heard of In5?
Of which?
There's a plugin called In5, IN, and then the number 5.
No, I haven't. No.
I will. Let me just make sure. I will make sure to send you.
Yeah, and I must apologize for not going up to the forum and filling in anything yet. It's just I'm so busy. It's crazy.
Well, you're here now, and it's late.
Yeah.
No, you're based in Europe. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, not a problem at all.
I have to say, I do love the product.
Oh, really cool. Yeah, and yeah, I see now you're from the Irish Whiskey Magazine. I might
That's it.
soon become a subscriber to that one. And
Oh, be careful. Be careful. Yeah, I mean there's one other element that I would be really keen to learn on, and that's using, and I have a link to the paper, but
Yep.
one would be the integration with WordPress
Ah.
that you have.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
but look, I could probably eat up all your time, and I'm not going to, so I'm going to have an early night. But you
Well,
said
I
it's
mean,
called In5 is called, yeah?
I send you info on that. So this one, it's not a perfect tool, but it kind of helps you get a HTML version somewhat. It's yeah. I send you the links. It's worth checking out their intro video, how that works. And some of our clients are using it. It's compatible with our platform.
Yeah.
Um,
So I could take the output from that and then use that in MagLoft.
that works exactly. Yeah, but it's so some things you can do, effects and animations that you can do quite okay. However, responsive is not really. It's not easy to get it up. There are ways though. So I'll send you that. They put it all. The founders have some great videos where they just explain how it all works.
Yeah, I don't mind the transitions so much because I would build the transitions within MagLoft itself.
I assume you have a lot of back issues, right?
This is my problem. I've 8. Well, no, not a lot. I've 7 back issues.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
One option is just to put them up as PDFs and let people know that going forward they'll be responsive, but it's not really what I want to do.
Yeah, a lot of our clients are doing exactly that, and some of them have 80 back issues where it's even more important. Some of them are trying. Who was it? Change Creator. They've had a lot of PDF back issues, but they choose the last 3 PDFs that they then read it in the editor, and then the new ones.
Something like that will happen. Yeah.
It's always like, I guess for a whiskey magazine, it's in a way timeless content, right? So it's
Well,
not
some
like
of it is, and some of
paper.
it is. Some of it's news related, and some of it's historical. So, it depends. Is the answer.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Okay. Look, there's so many questions I have, but I'm getting tired as well. But we'll. I haven't played that much around with it, but the people that are, so we're undergoing a whole redesign of the magazine.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So one thing that might be relevant would be, can I use a grid pattern within MagLoft?
A grid pattern like the 12-column grid, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that's possible. So I mentioned briefly, we have these grid settings where you can choose what the pixel ratios should be.
Yes.
In our old editor, we're actually using them, the 12-column grid as well.
Yeah.
In the new one, we are more using a flex box model, but let me think here. It shouldn't be no, I need to do some digging on this one. I assume what you refer to is also being able setting up some settings on how big should the gutter be by default, what should be the column width, and how many there should be.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. We have a backlog item in improving our columns widget. One of the things, and I didn't show it probably because we can't currently change the width of individual columns. This is something that's coming in the next, or in 2 weeks on the next live session. Then you'll be able to basically control exactly how broad each of the columns is.
Right. Okay.
And
But all the columns have to be the same width at the moment, do they?
Right now, as of now, yes. In a week from now, that's gonna be different.
Okay. Oh, really? In a week from now? Okay.
Yeah. No, this is a high priority item.
Excellent. Okay, because often we have text that would be, so if we have sometimes we might have text that takes up actually 2 columns effectively. Yep. So that's why it would be important. Okay, look, thank you very much. We'll speak again soon.
Absolutely, yeah. Looking forward to that. Thanks for all the feedback.
No problem. Thank you.
All right.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.